Alright guys, what is up? Welcome to the Boosted 615 channel. I'm in the truck today because we're going to talk about some truck stuff. Now, as most of you know, the new 2019 GMC Sierra came out yesterday, and I thought I would make a quick video talking about some of the things that I see right off the bat that I like and dislike about it, as well as some of the really cool features that I think that GM put a lot of time into really trying to make this truck stand out. I read in one of the press releases that the Silverado and Sierra engineers really wanted to make this generation truck more different from each other. You guys know the Silverado and the Sierra have always been pretty much the same truck inside and out. A few differences in the back or the front, rebadged, but they've always been pretty much the same truck. I think that while they still kind of are similar in a lot of ways, if you've seen the new 2019 Silverado, which I am not a fan of at all, you see some similarities between the trucks, but overall this truck seems to be quite a bit different than that truck. Diving into the front, and let me disclaimer, I am actually a big fan of the way this truck looks from this angle. From the front and this kind of like off-centered side angle, I'm a big fan of the way it looks. I love the strong kind of prominent grille here with the equally large GMC badge. These headlights, you know, they're very similar to the Terrain, the GMC Terrain, small SUV if you've seen it. Pretty much the same headlight, but I'm a big fan of these headlights. I've always liked the way, since the 2014 refresh, I've always liked the GMC style headlights. I think they're some of the best looking headlights out on the road, and I think the current generation Sierra is one of the best looking trucks on the road. I think this truck will be exactly the same way. So, the seat lamp headlights, they're saying full LED headlights and fog lights for the Denali trim. We don't know. I'm assuming SLT trim will probably have an option for if it's not standard, and then an option, you know, going down, there'll probably be a halogen with a LED possibly running light or accent light. Now, as you'll see, everything body colored on Denali trim. You have the body colored bumper, body colored, or I guess these are actually body colored and chrome accented, it looks like. Unless it's a shadow, it could be all chrome. But the skull caps on over the mirror, and then a body colored rear bumper as well. We'll look at the rear in the next picture. Big, broad hood line. I love the sculpting in the hood. It looks very powerful, and you know, with the 6.2 under the hood, it should look powerful. Back down, you see the chrome accenting around the fog lights. You know, I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't love kind of dripping a truck in chrome, if you will, but it is Denali trim, and I think it was tastefully done. The lower accenting here in chrome, you know, that's probably something that they could have done body color again, or in a shiny black. You see this on the current generation's trucks in chrome, and I don't think it looks bad. I just think that sometimes automakers get a little carried away. You have this big chrome grille and then chrome accenting and these big chrome wheels, and you know, I think that younger generations of people are kind of moving away from that, and they want to see more body colored or, you know, gloss black, things like that. But it's not to say it doesn't look good. I think it does look good, and it carries along with the design language quite well. Now you see here something that GM started doing in 2014 when they put the Z71 or 4x4 badges up on this front fender here. Now it looks like they've almost kind of done like the last generation Super Duty, Ford Super Duty had, where it had this kind of venting almost, if you will, this venting look with the badge in there. And in this one in particular, it says 6.2 liter V8. Being the Denali trim, it will have a 6.2 liter V8, which I'm a big fan of. Down the side of the truck, I really like these body lines much more than the Silverado. I think the Chevy designers got carried away with trying to make these crazy body lines in here, and most people have said it looks like a F-150 and a Tundra had a baby, and that's what happened. Here, you don't see that. You see a very clean, smooth body line down the side. Denali badging, typical. I've always liked that, even the little notch in the window. Now, I will say, that I think this is a Ford thing. In the 2015, Ford started doing this, but it does look nice here, and I'm okay with that. If they can make it work and it looks good and doesn't look like a flat copy of it, I'm okay with that. I think it looks great. Antenna, typical GM kind of shark fin style antenna in the front. The wheel wells. This is something that people have been complaining about on GM trucks forever. The squared off wheel wells. People want to be able to level a truck 2 inches, 2.5 inches, and squeeze in a 35-inch tire. You can do that on a Ford and on a Dodge. You cannot do that on a GM. And so on the Silverado, it seemed like they were kind of addressing that issue, where they kind of, rounded off the wheel wells a little more. And in this one, you can see they're rounded off and they kind of square off at the top. But then, I don't know what they were thinking with this. They did this weird, angle, notch coming down the body panel. And, I just don't know how I feel about that. It kind of accents what they did here with the window line. But to me, the wheel well, they should have either went with a squared off wheel well, which probably would have made some people mad, or a fully rounded off wheel well. I know they have this angular design, and I get it. They want to flow the design all the way through the truck. But I just think that there had to be another option than just doing this kind of front notch, if you will, coming down. But overall, from this angle, I think this is a beautiful looking truck. I mean, I absolutely love the way this truck looks in light years more than the Silverado. I think the Silverado, it'll grow. Every new truck that comes out, I'm like, and then it grows on me. The Silverado, I don't think that truck's going to grow on me. I am not a fan of the way that truck looks at all. This is probably the first truck that's come out new that I've looked at the first time I've seen it, first impression, and I thought, wow, that's a great looking truck. The 2018 F-150, I thought that, but it was so similar to the 15 to 17 body style with a minor change in the grille that you really couldn't have a super big, I hate it or I love it on there. It was really just kind of a refresh. And, I do like the way that truck looks. But this first appearance, I love the way this truck looks. Now, one thing I do want to mention that I don't like about this truck at all, as well as the new Silverado that's coming out, is the mirror. I don't understand why GM thought that people would want the mirror attached to the body. I know it's probably for aerodynamics. There's probably some kind of reason that they did it. But they still have the little plastic attachment right there on the window where a mirror would typically hook in. So I don't know why they needed to put this here. And then if you wanted to attach a tow mirror, which I have tow mirrors on my F-150, and I love them. I tow a boat and sometimes an enclosed trailer. And I think tow mirrors, if you're gonna use them, they're a must. They're incredible. If you're not gonna use them, that are just for looks or whatever have you, then, maybe not. But this truck has a 6.2 liter V8 in it. I mean, this is a truck. People are gonna wanna use this truck to be a truck. And for them to put a mirror here, which we haven't seen what they're thinking about for a tow mirror option, I just don't know how it's gonna work. I mean, I don't know how you can cover up that body gap if you take that mirror out and attach a mirror, if you're able to attach a mirror up here. I'm not sure. But I guess we'll wait and see. Now, one thing also here in the B pillar, it looks like they've gone to a gloss black B pillar, which is something that Ford has been doing, and I think other automakers have been doing it for quite some time. But GM's always had a body colored, solid B pillar. And now that they've gone to this gloss black B pillar, I really like the way it looks. It looks like a solid sheet of glass, coming from the A pillar back to the C pillar. And it breaks up this kind of chrome trim and the body line. I really love that kind of gloss black B pillar look, this solid sheet of glass going back. Now this picture is probably a little bit more blurry. I had a hard time finding some higher quality images except for that front one. But this is the angle of the truck that I am not a huge fan of. And I'll tell you why. I love this new Pro tailgate design that they're coming out with. I think it's a great idea. It's super innovative. All these different functions for this upper tailgate along with the power up and down rear tailgate, fantastic. The body line for that tailgate split drives me crazy. I haven't even seen one of these trucks in person yet, and I already know that that body line right there in the middle of the tailgate is going to drive me insane. I know that, like, how could they fix that, you know? And I get that. I absolutely get it. But this is gonna be about a $60,000 truck, and I just think that there had to be something that they could have done to get rid of this kind of U-shaped body line, whether it be like Ford does, where they have kind of the platinum trim or King Ranch trim across the back, you know, something. If they could have put some kind of trim piece here, it could have hid that body line a little bit, to where you don't see just a a minimal gap, but a gap nonetheless, right through the middle of your tailgate and then down the sides. That's just something that I'm not a fan of. I am a fan of the body colored bumper. Love that. Love the step. Love how GM is integrating their blind spot monitoring into the bumper. I think that's a great idea. When it's in the tail light, I just picture that being a really expensive repair. A full LED tail light with a blind spot monitoring radar system in it. I picture that being really expensive. Chrome, dual exhaust, squared off tips. This is something that I didn't like about the Silverado. It's something I don't like about this truck. I am not a fan of factory added exhaust tips that are integrated into the bumper. I think it just looks cheap. This looks plasticky to me. It doesn't scream like beefy to me, and I know some people are probably not going to like that, and some people probably will love this. They will love the integrated exhaust into it, because they'll say, well, I'm going to put dual pipes coming out the back anyways. I'd rather have it look like it was supposed to be there. And trust me, I agree with you, but this is not the answer. I think Ram does a nice job with theirs, but then again, like, I don't want that on my truck. But I think that if an automaker is going to do it, Ram does it right. This, pinched off, not a fan. But here on the side here, you can kind of see that notch that I'm talking about in the wheel well. You can have your own opinion on it. I just think that there's something that they could have done to make that not happen. It happens here in the front with the kind of like that bumper line, and I guess that makes sense, but you don't have to do it here. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. There's a way you can kind of flare it off to make the back and the front different, but have the same design language, and I think that that's a big point right there that they missed on this truck. I don't think that looks good at all. But side profile wise, again, the body line's really clean. Love the body lines on this truck, minus that. Taillights, I think the taillights look great, full LED. That's the way everything's moving in the automotive industry now. Full LED taillights, full LED headlights, LED fog lamps, LED interiors. That's where everything's going. And I think GM's had some of the best lighting on the market for quite some time, especially in the current generation, 2018 and down Silverado and Sierra, but mostly the Sierra. Love the lighting in those trucks. And I think this truck's gonna hit it off again. Here on the rear window, you see it looks like they have the standard power sliding rear window. That's something that I really like. Most trucks have that. I think that that's a great feature to have. Again, we see here the roof spoiler. This is a point of the truck that I really just do not like at all. I saw it first in the Trail Boss Silverado when it was released, and on a Trail Boss, maybe it looks kind of cool because it's a special edition and it's something that sets it apart from all the other editions. But then we found out that GM was just doing this for aerodynamics and wind flow coming over the back of the tailgate for efficiency. And yes, I'm for efficiency, but this, I just am not a fan of that at all. I'm a fan of the big, long LED brake light, but I am not a fan of this spoiler. Wow, it's terrible. I really hate that. I think that this profile of the truck doesn't look as good as the front profile, I think this back profile kind of makes it look like a Colorado or a Canyon when they used to make the Canyon, or I guess they still make it now. Makes it look like a larger version of that, and if GM wants to go that way, all the power to them, but not a fan of this. Kind of, I don't know. You guys have your own opinions on it. I think it looks good, but not as good from this angle as it does from the front. As you can see here, this one's got 22-inch chrome wheels. GM will have 20-inch and 22-inch. I've always liked GM wheels. The snowflakes, if you will, that are out right now are, I think, some of the best looking wheels on a truck besides, say, maybe the King Ranch and Platinum F-150s. And here's a quick shot of the side profile. This is where you can really kind of see the front kind of angles on the wheel arches and how they're rounded off, but they're almost kind of squared off, and they just have those arches in the front. And I think from this angle, I see a lot of Nissan Titan. I see a lot of new generation Nissan Titan from this angle, and I see old generation GMC Canyon in the taillight shape here. You guys may disagree with that, but that's what I see. Nonetheless, really nice looking side profile of the truck. I'm already picturing a 2 or 2.5 inch level on the front and trying to squeeze some 34s or 35s in there with the 22s. I think it would look fantastic. Now let's move quickly into the interior of the truck. This is a pretty typical center stack design. This is pretty much the same design language that you see in the current generation Silverado and Sierra. And I think that the current generation truck is one of the best looking interiors in the modern truck market. I think that the quality, the layout, and the function of everything is fantastic. This kind of builds on that, but I almost think it takes a step backwards. And what I mean by that is this trim piece that comes around. On the current generation truck, it accents this entire area, which makes the screen, in my opinion, look, larger. On this truck, mind you, this is still a Denali interior, so it has the largest screen you can get. And on this interior, the way this trim piece kind of cuts in and accents like how wide this area down here is where you have your HVAC controls, and kind of cuts in, it almost makes the screen look smaller to me. Just the way that line cuts in from the larger area into the smaller area where the screen is, I think it makes the screen look small, and I don't think that that's something you want, especially right now when Ram is debuting their massive, massive, massive center stack screen. I think that this is something that will probably be addressed. I think they'll probably change the design language. Maybe not the language, but they'll maybe change the execution, maybe in a 2021, like a 2-year refresh in the truck. Overall, though, this is going to be a nice looking interior. I can already tell with materials, the stitching. You see soft touch leather here, kind of a stainless steel almost looking trim pieces. And then the bright finished knobs. In the current generation truck, the knobs and buttons feel pretty high quality. To me, they feel like a high quality plastic, so I'm a fan of those. And if these are anything like that, I think it'll be a successful interior. This big plastic piece here that maybe is a downfall to the truck interior, in my opinion. I think it kind of makes the truck almost look plasticky. It just in this area here, you have a beautiful Denali interior. If you see any shots of it, they have beautiful, perforated leather seats and the stainless steel finish and wood and soft touch leather. And then you kind of throw this big hunk of like black plastic right in the middle of the dash. And to me, I just don't know that that's gonna appeal to the price tag that this truck is gonna try to command. Now, when we look at the full kind of driver cockpit area, one thing that's gonna stand out to you very quickly is the addition of a heads-up display. Now, GM's been putting heads-up displays in a lot of their cars for quite some time now. The Corvette's had it since the C7 pretty much debuted. And, I'm a big fan of this. I love heads-up displays. I think it's a great feature, especially when you're driving and you have your directions pop up on the window rather than having to look down to the center screen or look in between your tachometer and your speedometer. Just anything that can minimize the way you take your eyes off the road so you can keep looking forward. I think that's great. See, as you see here, it has your speed limit, time, when you're gonna arrive. You know, this is just kind of a stock image that GM put out of what the heads-up display can do. I'm not sure the full functions of it, but I would think that it would be pretty functional. Now, in the center touch screen, or center stack, I guess, you see that same kind of bright finished trim accenting this screen here. This looks to be a full digital, where your gas gauge and everything is full digital display, so I'm a big fan of that. Digital screen in the middle. It shows drive modes currently, so it says Tour, Sport, Off-Road, and Tow. So this truck's going to have some different drive modes, and I really like that. I think that, you know, nowadays with all the technology that we have, anything that you can do to kind of enhance the driving experience should be programmed into these vehicles. You know, the stitching and the soft touch leather and everything, that all carries over all the way across the cockpit. You have your analog displays for the tachometer and speedometer, it seems. You know, I've always liked GM interiors, so I don't have much to complain about here. The only complaint I really had was in that center area. I think that this is all laid out pretty well. I like the buttons on the steering wheel. Everything looks to be laid out where your hand would automatically rest, you know, if you want to find anything. Headlamp, this is all pretty much the same as the current generation truck. Headlamp control, some light functions over here. The four-wheel drive buttons. You know, that's something that GM has been doing. They've been putting it over on the left side by the headlight switch. And I haven't driven a GM truck enough to really know if I like that positioning or not. But I can see myself, you know, at night, you know, when I get in the truck, if I'm reaching over to turn on the headlamps, if I wasn't sure that was there. And this is, you know, they fixed this a little bit because the knob used to be right next to the headlamp. And I could see people just all the time putting their trucks in four-wheel drive by accident. So they've kind of moved it. But, you know, we still aren't sure. I guess I'm still not sold on the fact that they put the four-wheel drive right next to the headlamp knob. I'd probably like to see it more, you know, over by the column shifter, if you will. Also, speaking of column shifters, that is something that I love. I do not like how Ford and Ram put the column shifter, or not even a column shifter, just the shifter in the console. I don't like that. It's a truck. I want it up here by the steering wheel, just so I can quickly come up and down with it. And I like that GM's not trying to do anything crazy with the rotary knob or anything like that. None of that crap. This is a serious truck because of that column shifter. Now, this truck will have push to start, and that's fine. That's a modern touch that needs to happen. I'm a fan of that. But the column shifter, big fan of that. Kudos to GM for just sticking with what works and not trying to be crazy in this aspect. I think that's going to pay off with customers for sure. Okay, now that we've seen some of the images from the truck, I just want to mention some of the notes that I took while I was reading through the press release for the 2019 Sierra. As you saw in the front, it'll feature full LED headlamps. They're calling that their light blade design. And like I said, I'm a big fan of the way that those look. 20 to 22 inch wheels. I'm assuming Denali will probably have 20 or 22s, probably an option for 22s. SLT will probably have an option for 20 or 22s, and then the lower trims from there will probably have an option for 20s and probably come from the factory with 18s. But I haven't seen any other trim levels yet, so I can't say for sure on that. For this generation, GM has extended the crew cab. They're saying it has best-in-class front head and legroom. So, you know, that's a big deal. I think that some of the other automakers have had more room in their trucks for a long time. I think that's something that GM has always kind of lacked. Not to say that their trucks weren't roomy, but the other trucks were just more roomy. And so, for them to extend the length of the crew cab, they're saying it has more legroom in the back, but they're not saying it has best-in-class legroom. So that leads me to believe that they extended it just enough to get a few more inches. But it probably isn't as big as some of the other competition that's out there. We talked about the 3x7 inch heads-up display. They're calling that a segment first, and like I said, I think that's a great thing. I love the heads-up display. I'm a big fan of that. bird's eye camera display in the center stack, so that's something that you see in a lot of other automakers. That would be a full 360 cam where it makes you look like you're hovering above the truck and you can see all around the truck. The rear view camera mirror is something that I am just astounded by, and I think it's incredible. So being a truck, you know, if you have things in the bed or things in the back seat that are covering up your visibility through the mirror, you can actually change the mirror to see what the rear view camera sees, which I think is just, I mean, that's modern day technology, you know? I think that's awesome. I love that. I can't wait to see other automakers start doing it. I know Nissan does it in the Armada, and I think it's great, and I'm not positive any other automakers that currently do it, but in a truck, I think that is awesome. Typical modern advanced safety features, lane keep assist. I'm assuming it'll have the cruise control where it keeps you away from the car in front of you. All good things, as long as they don't hinder the human element of driving. I'm a fan of the technology systems that are being put in cars right now, but I'm not a fan of them kind of taking over or taking power away from the actual driver. That's not something that I'm a fan of. Pro grade trailer package. This will be available on Denali trim and probably SLT trim as well. It has a really cool passive anti-theft feature where if a trailer is hooked up to a Sierra, and somebody tries to steal the trailer, the truck will set off the alarm system. Essentially, the horn, the lights will flash, letting somebody know that somebody's trying to steal a trailer. I think that's cool. There's some other features in there that I don't have written down, but you can find more information about this on gmc.com. The big one for this year is the Multi-Pro tailgate. Something that, you know, I guess we'll wait and see how it works. They say it's on Denali and SLT, and then it's an option as you go down the trim levels. In the press release, it looked pretty cool, but I can imagine that this is something that people maybe won't use as much as GM thinks that they will. But nonetheless, a cool feature, and if they could just figure out that body line on the tailgate, I think it would be a home run in terms of some innovative design that other people aren't doing. They have a claim that the standard 5'8" bed has more room than Ford and Ram's 6.5 foot bed. I have a 6.5 foot bed on my F-150, and I purposely waited until I could find a truck with a 6.5 foot bed because they are a little bit harder to come by down here in the South. But I'm a big fan of the 6.5 foot bed, especially if you put a toolbox on the truck. You know, if you have a 5.5 foot bed with a toolbox, you essentially lose all of you have 3 feet of cargo space. For them to say that their 5'8" bed is gonna have more volume capabilities than the 6.5 foot bed, I would love to test that out, because this 6.5 foot bed in my F-150, it can hold some shit. It can hold some shit, and you know, I'd love to pit them against each other just to see if that claim holds true. The Carbon Pro box is something that is a big deal for this year. They're saying that you can order a Sierra with a carbon fiber bed, and I guess we'll see on this one. You know, GM has been knocking Ford. They've been knocking Ford for a long time when Ford started putting aluminum in their beds and they started building their whole trucks out of aluminum. That, you know, you've seen all the commercials about how it dents and things break through it and stuff, and now GM's going to put carbon fiber in their bed, so I'm curious to see what some of the GM fanboys have to say about that when they've been all, you know, steel for so long. But I'm a fan, you know, anything that's a strong material that saves weight and improves efficiency, I'm a fan of that. Engine-wise, revised 6.2 and 5.3 V8s. These are the same two engines that have been in GM trucks for a long time. They're saying they're revised, so they'll probably have upped horsepower and upped torque. You know, they have start-stop features. Not a fan of that, but I know it has to happen for the CAF standards. I get it. As long as there's a button included to turn it off when you get in the truck, fine. Dynamic fuel management. This is something that's actually pretty cool, and it's also something that I am not a big fan of. So they're saying that the new 6.2 and the new 5.3 will be able to run on one cylinder. Now, if you've owned a GM truck in the past, or you currently own one, you'll know that your truck can go from V8 to V4. This truck, essentially, they're saying it can go from V8 to V1? I don't know. What do you call that? They're saying it can run on up to one cylinder and will manage cylinders based on how much power the truck needs to move effectively. And, you know, the old active fuel management system in the GM trucks never really worked like I think it should. GM trucks, or GM owners, are always complaining about how much oil their trucks were using. You know, having to top off your oil all the time because the oil sits on top and then essentially it never goes back to the motor. And so and then GM says that that's normal operation. So every 1,000 miles, if you're putting in a quart of oil, worst case scenario, you know, that is that's not good. You know, that shouldn't happen, especially not when you're paying as much money as you are for these trucks. But if they can do this effectively and have these engines run how they're supposed to, then I'm all for it. And I don't want to feel it. I don't want to feel when the truck goes from V8 to one cylinder. That's something that I've driven. I drove a 2015 Tahoe. We rented one on a family vacation. I drove it around a little bit, and it went from V8 to V4, and you could feel when it switched, and it really kind of hindered the driving experience, and that's not something that I think should happen. I don't want it to be a hindrance on my driving abilities. New for this year, they're adding a 3-liter turbo diesel. I'd be interested to see the numbers on that truck. I'm assuming it's going to be high torque, lower horsepower, but it'll be a tow monster. So we'll be happy to see that, especially when Ford's doing that now too, and then Ram's had the Eco Diesel out. So we'll be pitting them up against each other and seeing, you know, kind of what's the best 1500 diesel truck. 6.2 and 3-liter are going to be hooked up to the 10-speed. I'm assuming it's going to be the same 10-speed that you can find in the one that GM and Ford co-developed. I'm assuming it'll be the same 10-speed. And then the 5.3 will be hooked up to an 8-speed. And I'm not sure why they're doing that, but I'm assuming it's because the 6.2 and the 3-liter will be kind of a upcharge engine, if you will. And so you'll get the higher end transmission with that, where the 5.3 will be more of a base engine, and you'll get the base transmission. So those are my quick notes on the truck. You know, there's gonna be more information being released as we go. You can find a lot of that on gm.com if you want to look more into yourself. But here it is, guys, the 2019 Sierra. Overall, I'm a fan of it. There's some things that I don't like, but no truck is perfect, no vehicle is perfect, and I'm you know, really ecstatic about this truck. Though I'm way happier about this truck than I was about the Silverado. And, you know, obviously they're probably going to sell more Silverados because it's just kind of more of the bulk truck for GM, if you will. But I'm can't wait to see some of these out on the road because I think they look really nice in pictures. And so when they're out on the road in person, you know, I'm really happy to see that. I'm also wanting to see some of the lower end trim levels on this truck when it comes out. You know, they've always put out Denali because that's the high end trim, that's the luxury trim. That's what most of their truck sales are actually Denali and SLT. So they sell more of the luxury trim, and you know that's GMC. They've always been that. But I'm interested to see kind of how this design language carries over to some of the lower end trim levels. But yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed kind of listening to me talk about this. I know I ranted about some things and rambled on about some things, but I really wanted to give you guys my opinions on this truck because, I don't know, I love trucks and I love new things. I love shiny things. And so when something new comes out, I want to dissect it as much as I can, kind of use my design eye on that and just kind of dive into it a little bit more. But if you guys enjoyed the video, I would please recommend you to subscribe and also drop a like down the video and comment what you guys think about the new 2019 Sierra. If you're new to the channel, my name is Zach, and we talk a lot about trucks. We talk a lot about some new cars. I'm new to YouTube, but we'll do some vlog style outdoors things, fishing, but also a lot of vehicle content. You know, when something new like this comes out, I want to talk about my thoughts about it, as well as talk about my 2014 F-150 EcoBoost. You know, so I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, like I said before, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.